Welcome to the 11th season of Heart to Heart with Anna. Our theme this season is Heart Warrior Siblings, and we have a great show for you today. Today's show is Heart Sister, Heart Warrior, and Heart Mom, and our guest is Steffe Becker. We'll be talking with Steffe about her brother, who was born with a congenital heart defect, and the fact that she has twins, one with a heart defect and one without. Steffe Becker was born in 1968 without an aortic valve and with coarctation of the aorta and a ventricular septal defect, or VSD. She has had 7 open heart surgeries and multiple pacemaker generator changes due to right bundle branch block. Steffe is a mom of twins, Alexander and Zach, who are now 17. Alexander was born heart healthy, while his brother Zach was born with bicuspid-aortic-valve and multiple other heart conditions. Steffe also has a brother who was born with a bicuspid-aortic-valve and aortic-stenosis. He received a mechanical valve over 40 years ago and has been very healthy without additional interventions. In fact, Steffe's brother prefers not to talk about his heart conditions at all. So welcome to Heart with Anna, Steffe.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm very happy to have you on the program today, and I'm so curious about your brother. So can you tell us, first of all, is your brother younger or older than you?
He's 2.5 years older than me.
And do you remember your brother having surgery, or did he have it before you were even born?
He had surgery 6.5 months prior to mine when I was 11.
Oh.
That was his first surgery. He was 13 when he had his first surgery. I was away at sleepaway camp, so I don't remember the process.
Mm-hmm. But he was already a teenager before he had his surgery, so I guess it wasn't a condition that bothered him too much as a youngster growing up.
Correct. He had a bicuspid-aortic-valve that leaked, but it wasn't a severe leak. And as he got older, and obviously as he grew, the heart grew, the leaking became more significant. And by the time he was 13, it was scheduled as opposed to an emergency surgery. So they were able to monitor it. You know, back in the 60s, early 70s, we didn't really have echoes like we have today.
Right.
So it was more guesswork.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So you said that you had surgery right around the same time your brother did, but that wasn't your first surgery, was it?
No, that was my third.
Mm-hmm. How old were you when you had your first surgery?
I was 5 hours old when I had my first surgery.
Wow.
And then I had another repair at 5 weeks old, and that took me until I was 11, which was when I got my mechanical valve.
Okay, so then both you and your brother had mechanical valves put in at about the same time.
Yeah, 6.5 months apart.
Wow. Was your recovery similar?
No. I believe he was home within like 10 days after surgery. Again, I was at camp, so I wasn't there for it, but I believe he was home about 10 days after surgery with no complications. I went into a right bundle branch block, and being 11 going on 12 in the late 70s, early 80s, they weren't keen on putting pacemakers in children right away.
Right. They didn't have them small enough, did they?
No. So I was about 6.5, 7 months in the hospital with an external pacemaker that came out of my left arm, waiting for it to reverse itself.
Oh, my gosh. So it sounds like your condition was much more severe than what your brother's was. So did your parents treat you and your brother very differently?
No. We kind of were raised in a world of you lived life to the fullest that you could, to whatever your capacity was.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't know any different. You know, our normal was all we knew.
Right.
So we did everything as, quote unquote, normally as any other kid would. I mean, we were lucky that we were well functioning to some extent, that we went to sleepaway camp, we played extracurricular activities. Things didn't really change as far as restrictions until after surgery. Mm-hmm. And again, you're talking about a generation where we knew very little compared to what we know today.
Well, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And so I imagine things would be very different if your parents were raising you today, because they would have so much more information. Did your parents have any kind of support network?
There was no support network. I mean, the only other time I actually saw kids that had any kind of heart defect was when we went to the cardiologist. Mm-hmm. We didn't have anybody in our community that we knew of. There was no community connection as far as a support network or camps for CHD kids or anything like that
Right.
at the time. We went to a traditional sleepoid camp and nobody thought anything of it.
That wouldn't be the case anymore. So now you're really a strong advocate in the congenital heart defect community. Is your brother also involved in a heart community?
No, he doesn't really talk about it. I mean, he got his mechanical valve at 13, and that's 40 plus years ago. And he's never had any further issues with it. I mean, his biggest change was going on Coumadin, and he's just lived his life. He's had no restrictions, no issues, nothing as he grew. So he doesn't really acknowledge it.
Wow. Is that hard for you, considering how severe your heart defect is? It's not like you can ignore yours.
Well, I think everybody copes and lives with their CHD differently. And I think the effect that our CHD has on us, as far as debilitating us or encouraging us, is different for everybody. Just like anything in life, how it affects you is going to be different for everybody. So it doesn't really bother me. Part of me would love to see him involved just because I think he would give so many parents and young kids hope, because to go 40 years with your original mechanical valve and no further issues and nothing inhibiting you is really something. It's really something, to acknowledge.
Oh, I think it's remarkable.
Because you hear about so many that suffer.
Yeah, that's really remarkable. I think you're absolutely right. So do you think that maybe as he gets older, if he has to have that valve replaced, that he may become more involved with the community?
I don't know. I mean, when you're going strong at almost 53, with your original valve, I don't even think he gives a thought anymore to it as to ever having to have it replaced.
Wow. Does that worry you?
Still goes to the cardiologist every 6 months, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Does it worry you? Because you have had your valve replaced, haven't you?
4 times.
Wow. That's amazing. So you're in the same family. You both have problems with your valve, but it seems like you've had so much more trouble with yours than he has.
Well, I had more defects, too, when
Right.
I was born. I mean, he had a bicuspid-aortic-valve, that basically aortic-stenosis, and that was it. And aortic-stenosis is so common with a bicuspid-aortic-valve because of the pressure it puts on that aorta. Mm-hmm. So, granted, in his year, they didn't know it was as common as today. A bicuspid-aortic-valve is a relatively common defect as far as all the defects go.
Right. The bicuspid-aortic-valve is the most common congenital heart defect.
The most common themes that I hear is why.
She always needed a lot of attention. She had strokes.
Even though it's a natural inclination to withdraw from the CHD community, I think being a part of it helped me be part of the solution.
Heart to Heart with Michael. Please join us every Thursday at noon Eastern. I'm Michael Lieben, and I'll be your host as we talk with people from around the world who have experienced those most difficult moments.
Home Tonight Forever by the Baby Blue Sound Collective. I think what I love so much about this CD is that some of the songs were inspired by the patients.
Many listeners will understand many of the different songs and what they've been inspired by. Our new album will be available on iTunes, Amazon.com, Spotify.
I love the fact that the proceeds from this CD are actually going to help those with congenital heart defects.
Enjoy the music.
Home Tonight Forever.
You are listening to Heart with Anna. If you have a question or comment that you would like addressed on our show, please send an email to Anna Jaworski at anna@hearttoheartwithanna.com. That's anna@hearttoheartwithanna.com. Now, back to Heart with Anna.
Steffe, we just finished talking to you about how your brother has a much less severe heart defect than what you do. But we didn't really get to talk a whole lot about exactly what your heart defect is. And while I think probably a lot of people who are listening know what aortic stenosis is and bicuspid aortic valve, probably not a lot of people know what right bundle branch block is. So can you talk to us a little bit about what that is?
A right bundle branch block is a block in the electrical system. So your ventricles pick up on an impulse, which allows them to pump. When the right bundle branch is blocked, your right ventricle is not picking up on those impulses. Mm-hmm. So it's not activating. So therefore it's not pumping on that side. That's what I started with today. Neither ventricle picks up on those impulses. I have a 3-lead pacemaker, which controls both the ventricles and the atrium.
And you've had your pacemaker since you were 11?
Since I was 11.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I bet you've seen pacemakers change a lot over the years.
They have. I mean, I can't say they've changed somewhat in size today, which I don't have, but they now have a very, very tiny pacemaker that's wireless. But I still have the traditional generator with the leads. They've changed today. They're MRI compliant. For years, pacemakers were never MRI compliant. Originally, you couldn't go near the old microwaves, and today there are still some issues with convection ovens. But as technology changes, we're getting some amazing technological changes in pacemakers. They now record when you transmit. They can actually read the pacemaker, so it'll show them any electrical problems that are occurring.
Wow, that's great. So you don't have to wear Holter monitors or anything because they can see exactly what your heart has been doing thanks to your pacemaker.
Correct.
Wow. So I'm kind of curious. It seems like your brother had one operation, then it was done. He's led a completely normal life as far as having to be in a hospital and having operations, whereas you've had more than your fair share. And you've had one operation after another. You've had multiple devices put inside of you. How has having all of these surgeries and all of this attention on your heart, how has that affected you growing up?
That 11-12 year was hard because that was a big surgery and a lot of time, 6-7 months living in a hospital.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a children's hospital. They were not prevalent like they are today. So I was living at Mount Sinai in New York in the CICU unit, which was mainly adult-based. Mm-hmm. So that changed things a little bit. And then I kind of went back to a normal childhood, so to speak. It was young adulthood that had significant changes compared to other age groups, I guess you could say. At 21, 20, and when you go off to college, those are the ages that I really saw the difference. People that didn't know what CHD was, didn't understand it. I was no longer in the community I grew up in with friends that I went all through high school with that were used to the fact that I had a scar on my chest, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You became more aware of the lack of education about it out there.
Right, right. So did people treat you differently who knew that you had that scar on your chest?
Yeah, I don't know that they treated me differently so much as because I always had it. And traditionally you go through school pretty much with the same kids all the way through,
right,
from kindergarten on. So I don't know if they treated me differently or if it just wasn't an issue because it was always there. And when you go off to college, people that are unfamiliar with it, they're like, hey, what's that? And, dating is a whole new dynamic. And there's just all kinds of new dynamics to it.
Absolutely. That would be really challenging, especially if you spent your entire childhood in one place. It doesn't sound like you moved around. Is that right?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I did not move around. So it was interesting in that respect. And even though we lived a normal childhood, as far as after-school activities, extracurriculars, going to camp, all those people were aware that I had this, so it was never a question.
Right. Yeah, they probably had you under their wing and were just kind of watching you from afar to make sure everything was okay, but it doesn't sound like they made a big deal about it. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But then when you became a young adult, you left home, everything changed.
Yeah, it was a whole new world.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you only have this one sibling, or do you have other brothers and sisters?
No, I only have one sibling.
Oh, okay. So then you did enter into a whole new world when you left home. And I imagine, since your brother's older, he left home before you.
Yes, he did. He left home before me. I don't know what kind of effect, if any, it had on him.
Was it a little bit different for you when all of a sudden you were the only one home alone with your parents?
No, nothing changed at all. Life just kept going on. And I mean, as far as heart-wise, nothing really changed.
So what kind of relationship did you have with your brother? Was it the typical sister-brother relationship where he would pick on you and treat you like older brothers do? Or do you think he treated you a little bit more gently because he knew you had the heart defect?
No, I think it was traditional brother-sister relationship. He didn't treat me no, I got no grace period for it.
Okay, I could just imagine what he was probably like with you. And there was probably a lot of teasing and everything that just normally goes on between brothers and sisters, right?
I don't know. It didn't play a major factor. I mean, it did play a major factor, obviously, when something went south and, you ended up having to go to the hospital or doctors or whatever. But once the crisis was over, it was like nothing happened.
Wow. You were in the hospital, you said, for 6 months when you were 11 and he was 13. Back then, they did not have children's hospitals. And you said you were at a hospital that treated both children and adults.
Yes.
Did they let your brother come and visit you while you were in the hospital?
Yes.
Oh, did they?
Yes.
Okay. So was that something that you have fond memories of?
Yeah, I can't say that it was bad. I mean, that room became like a party room. I mean, my cousins would come and aunts and uncles and friends from school would come on the weekends. And it wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world either. It was tolerable. Nurses were nice. I mean, I spent my 12th birthday there, so, they had a big party. And it was okay. It was okay.
Well, it's good that you can say that. And I hope that any nurses who might be listening to this show realize you guys are so important, because the nurses are the people who are there with the patients all the time. And it sounds like they did an okay job of not making it seem too scary for you to be there.
No, they were huge. They were a huge part of it. I don't know. I mean, I credit my parents. I was raised in an environment with this is life and you have two choices. You either live it or you sit in a corner and cry. It's your choice what you're going to do with it.
Right.
And so you just always make the best of a bad situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, your parents sound amazing.
They were. So that's kind of how we still live. You make the best of a bad situation. Not every day is going to be a great day, but you keep pushing through.
I love it. I love that positive attitude.
I am with Origami Owl Jewelry, and we personalize lockets. It has helped me heal so much by having that locket. I've had other friends and customers who have created lockets. They love their lockets, and they gift lockets to people who are bereaved or they're celebrating somebody.
To get your own Origami Owl locket, contact Nancy Jensen on Facebook or her website, nancydanceme.origamiOwl.com.
Heart to Heart with Anna is a presentation of Hearts Unite the Globe and is part of the Hug Podcast Network. Hearts Unite the Globe is a non-profit organization devoted to providing resources to the congenital heart defect community to uplift, empower, and enrich the lives of our community members. If you would like access to free resources pertaining to the CHD community, please visit our website at www.congenital-heart-defects.com for information about CHD, the hospitals that treat children with CHD, summer camps for CHD survivors, and much, much more.
Steffe, it's been so interesting to hear how you and your brother had, sounds to me like a completely normal relationship growing up, even though your parents had two children, both of them had heart defects, both of them had valves replaced at young ages. I think your parents and your whole family sound amazing. But who would have thought that when you started your own family that you would be dealing with heart defects in your own children? Was that a complete surprise for you?
No. I was always told not to have children, so careful wasn't careful enough, obviously. But given my history and the change in times between 1968 and 1999, they knew to look for it. So we watched and we waited and we did ultrasounds and we did all the traditional stuff.
So the doctors told you not to get pregnant, but it sounds like you defied them. Is that true? Or was this an accident?
Well, I didn't defy them on purpose.
Okay.
I didn't defy them on purpose. And my doctors growing up, of course, were in New York, and I was now on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. Well, I wasn't really on the West Coast. I was in Texas. And the cardiologist there wasn't 100% thrilled, but at the same time, she specialized in congenital heart defect women and pregnancy. So, we made it happen.
Wow. I think that's really inspiring. I think there are a lot of parents who are listening today who are parents of children with heart defects similar to what you have who are wondering, will my child be able to have a baby, especially if it's a girl? So if it's a boy, it's not quite as serious a consideration, but certainly if you have a daughter, this is one of the things that you wonder about. So the fact that you were able to have a child, and do twins run in your family? Were you surprised to see you had not one, but two babies?
Now, twins, I was surprised. Heart, I wasn't surprised, but twins?
That would actually not surprise me because twins run in my family, and both times I got pregnant, I thought for sure I had twins. When we did the ultrasound, I thought sure one of those babies was hiding.
Yeah, no, they did mine, told me it was twins and there could be more, and I was like, oh no, there can't.
Oh my gosh. What do you mean there could be more? Why would they think there could be more?
Sometimes a heartbeat hides. And I was so early on when they did an ultrasound to find it, and I was so early on, which ended up being a really good thing because it allowed me to get cardiac and OBGYN care really early on.
Mm-hmm. That is good that you did that. So did they find the twin? It's Zach, right, who has the heart defect? Did they find that in utero?
They found out in utero. We did the normal ultrasounds, and then given my history, the cardiologist had recommended that we do an intrauterine echo, and we did an intrauterine echo, and that's where we found his defect. Alex's heart looked perfectly normal. There was no 100% guarantee that they didn't miss something because the heart is so small at that point and it's hard to see, but it at least gave us a clue as to what we'd be facing.
Mm-hmm. And so you knew right away, it looks like Alex is okay. We're not so sure about Zach. Were they able to pinpoint what the defect was, or did they just say, no, we can tell there's something wrong?
Oh, no, they pinpointed it. We knew right away he had a bicuspid-aortic-valve.
That's amazing.
They weren't sure about the stenotic level of the aorta or the aortic root or anything, because that's hard to see, and that continues to grow as the baby develops.
Mm. And you found out early?
Yeah.
How far along were you when you discovered that Zach did have a heart defect?
They didn't see it on the 18-week ultrasound, but at the 19th week, we did the intrauterine echo and we saw it. Or they saw it, I should say, not we.
Well, you were in the same room. I'm sure you looked at the monitor and you saw it too. I just can't believe they could see something that tiny, that they could identify it that well 17 years ago. That's pretty remarkable, don't you think? You must have gone to a great center.
February 18 years ago.
Yeah, so what center did you go to?
I was at St. Luke's Episcopal at the Houston Medical Center, the Texas Medical Center in Houston.
Wow. Okay, so yay, Texas. And of course, everybody who's listened to the program knows I'm from Texas. So I have to cheer that hospital for 18 years ago to be able to identify in utero a bicuspid-aortic valve. That's pretty remarkable. I guess it was really expensive to have the intrauterine echo, and they probably didn't want to perform that too often. So did you only have it that one time?
Yes.
And then as soon as the baby was born, did they whisk him away to do more tests on him?
As soon as he was born, he went to Texas Children's, to the NICU, to do some testing, but also because he wasn't clearing out his lungs, which turned out to be pure laziness.
Oh, no. He just didn't want to cry. Okay. So now you have a pair of children who one has a heart defect and one does not. And it's a little bit similar to your situation growing up, since your brother's heart defect seemed so minor compared to yours. Do you see that your boys have the same kind of relationship you had with your brother, where they pretty much just treat each other normally? Or do you see where one favors the other or worries about the other?
Their relationship's a little bit different because their dad passed away when I was 27 weeks pregnant. So it's always just been the three of us. So they do have the normal brother relationship. When something goes wrong or Zach's not feeling well or something like that, Alex does jump in as more of the caretaker, worries about him, keeps an eye out for him, be it at school or anywhere. So it's a little bit different than just the standard normal relationship, but they definitely have the normal relationship. I mean, they still throw each other around, wrestle, and even at 17 and a half.
Oh, my goodness. I have two sons. They're not twins, but they definitely had a normal relationship too. And my boys were in Taekwondo together. And yes, they threw each other around and kicked each other.
I mean, I don't know what it is about poking each other, but they love to poke each other. So one screams and then they're punching each other and who knows what.
It's just typical guy stuff, I guess.
I guess.
I have one more question for you, Steffe. I can't believe how quickly our time together has gone. But the last question I have for you is, how does being a heart warrior and a heart sister affect your relationship with the twins? Are you closer to Zach because you've walked in his shoes?
No, I don't think I'm closer to him. I mean, I think we all have our part of this journey. I can empathize with him more because I've walked in his shoes. But both of those kids have been amazing. We hear about the moms that deal with the kids. We don't hear so much about the kids that deal with the parents and them obviously only having a single parent. So they've already lost their dad before they were born. And they've spent 17 years watching me be life flighted away or sitting in a hospital with me. And most recently last December, watching me just die on the couch because my pacemaker failed.
Oh, my goodness.
So I think, I think they grow up a lot faster. So I think our relationship's a lot closer for so many of those dynamics. Yeah. And the fact that together we started the nonprofit and we worked that together and we all have our piece in that. I think it's just a closer relationship for so many different dynamics. But I don't think I'm closer to one over the other.
No, it sounds like you're really tight-knit and all three of you look out for one another and help one another. It sounds like a really beautiful family.
We do what we can and we raise awareness and help others get through it because you can live through it. It's all a matter of what your perspective on it is.
Absolutely. So let's give a plug to your nonprofit.
We started Pocketful of Hearts for many reasons. We started one because families need help. The cost of having a CHD child or being a CHD patient is enormous. Insurance is constantly changing, which leaves personal liability changing all the time. So we try to help the families. We've been very lucky. I mean, right now we're in the process of actually making a car payment for somebody so that they don't lose their transportation to get back and forth to their other kids and the hospital. We also started it. A very, very long-term goal that we're working on is to raise funds so that we can build a heart research center that's strictly for congenital heart, pediatric and adult, and has the ability not to turn anyone away regardless of the insurance debacle or financial debacles that anybody has. That's our main goal in it, is that there are people behind it that have walked the journey, that understand it, that have been there, so that when we look at somebody and say, we know where you are, it's because either we've been a mom watching it or we've been the patient whose chest has been cracked, or it's very bland when someone looks at you and says, I know what you're going through. And in fact, they haven't experienced any of it on any level outside of maybe being the doctor or nurse who cares for it. Mm-hmm. And not diminishing them, because we have wonderful doctors and nurses that we couldn't get through this without.
Right. But it's that statement, I know what you're going through, when they don't really know. Whereas it sounds like with your nonprofit, your people really understand because they've been affected one way or another. Why don't you tell everybody what your website is?
It's Pocketful of Hearts, pocketful with one L, pocketful-of-hearts.org. Everything and everybody that has participated in the setting up of this foundation is a heart family. Our logo was designed by a heart mom and dad. Our website was built by a heart dad. Everything we do involves our community, and every dollar we raise goes to our community. Nobody gets paid. It's strictly 100% volunteer.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Steffe.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad, whatever awareness we can raise, we're doing it.
I love it. Yes. And that's what this show is all about. And it sounds like that's what your nonprofit is all about. We're all a part of a community. And I think one of the biggest things is to know that no matter what your income level is, if you can just reach out and do what Steffe was saying, help with the website, do some artwork. My organization, Hearts Unite the Globe, is the same way. The people who work with us volunteer so many hours to help us to do what we do. And so reach out to Pocketful of Hearts or reach out to Hearts Unite the Globe. You never know how you can make a difference. So that concludes this episode of Heart to Heart with Anna. Thanks for listening today, friends. Please come back next week on Tuesday at noon Eastern Time. Until then, please follow our show, Heart to Heart with Anna, on YouTube. You'll find the show by looking under my name, Anna Jaworski, that's Jaworski. And remember, my friends, you are not alone.
Thank you again for joining us this week. We hope you have been inspired and empowered to become an advocate for the congenital heart defect community. Heart to Heart with Anna, with your host Anna Jaworski, can be heard every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Time.